in Times Square at the Times Square Art Center, and I have a little friend here. He has so much to say. This is Jeffrey Gurian, right? I said your name right?
Exactly. You said it
Oh,
amazingly
wow.
correct. Right on the first shot. And I said Little Nat. I said that right too, right?
Yeah, you did
What
good.
a small world.
A lot of people say Little Nate, so you did
No,
very well.
Little Nat is the best. That's it.
All right, well, tell the people what you do, your history, everything.
Well, I'm a comedy writer for the Friars Club, and I'm working on a really interesting project right now. Among others, I'm doing a book and a documentary film on the legendary comedy club, The Comic Strip. Chris Rock is exec producing the movie. It's the club where he was discovered by Eddie Murphy in 1986. Jerry Seinfeld came out of there, Adam Sandler, George Wallace, Larry Miller, a million big stars. Everybody came out of yeah. And so it's the 35th anniversary next year.
Wow.
So I've already interviewed about 22 of the biggest stars. Just interviewed Seinfeld this week. And the great story about Chris Rock is that Eddie Murphy came in 1986. Now the owner of the club, his name is Richie Tinkin. And he was a bar owner from the Bronx who just lucked out and opened this club. Right? And so he was managing Eddie from Saturday Night Live through Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Oh, that
So-
sounds like a nice big check there.
Oh, it was a long
He
run.
lived.
It was 11 years. He lived high,
A
man. He
great
definitely
life.
A-list, all the
A-list
way.
for sure.
So one night in '86, Eddie Murphy comes in, and he says to Richie, "Are there any black comics here? I want to see somebody new." But in those days, there weren't many black comics.
Right.
These days, it's very different. But in those days, there really
Very
was
few.
very few.
can count them on
Donnell
one hand.
Rawlins, maybe. Just there were very few. So Chris Rock was 19 years old, and he was cleaning up the club in exchange for stage time. That was his deal. That he
Right.
would set up the chairs at night, and he would clean up. And so the manager said to Eddie, "We only got this one kid, Chris Rock," but they didn't want Eddie to leave because it was a big
Right.
deal. When Eddie showed up, they wanted him to stay.
Right.
So they said, "Well, you know what? Put Chris on." Now, Chris had never performed before a full house before. Chris
Right.
always went on at 2 in the morning with 6 people there.
Right, right.
So this time he goes on, and the room is packed, absolutely packed. And
And
Chris
how did
goes
he
on
do?
stage. He killed. He
Nice.
absolutely killed. So Eddie was waiting for him when he got off stage, and they went. In those days, Eddie was traveling with his entourage. All kinds of bodyguards were around him. A guy named Fruity, I understand, and they protected him while he spoke to Chris, and he gave Chris his number.
Okay.
Now, when he left that night, Chris was too nervous to call him, so he didn't call him for 2 days. On that Sunday, he ran into a guy who now runs Caroline's Comedy Club, a guy named Louis Ferranda.
Okay.
And he told Louis, word got out in the comedy community that Eddie Murphy was really excited about this kid, Chris Rock,
Rock,
right? And everybody kind of knew it. So he says, "Chris, I heard Eddie likes you." He goes, "Yeah, he gave me his number." He goes, "Will you call him?" He goes, "No, I'm nervous to call him." He goes, "What, are you out of your mind? Call him. If he give you his number, he wants you,
You
to,
need
call
to call him,
You need to
right.
call him." So he called
finally
him.
called him.
He invited him to the movies that night, and he went with Eddie's entourage and Eddie's mother, and they got along so well that night, Eddie said to him, "Listen, tomorrow we're going to L.A. Why don't you come with us?"
Right.
Now, Chris had never been on an airplane. He had never stayed in a hotel.
Uh-huh.
He was from Bed-Stuy, right?
Okay.
From the hood. He told me that when his father bought a shrimp, he would buy one shrimp and cut it up into 7 pieces. He had never had a whole shrimp in his life.
Right.
So he borrowed clothes from one of his brothers, because there's 7 brothers and 1 sister.
Right.
And he went to L.A. with Eddie Murphy, and they put him up in this beautiful hotel, L'Hermitage, and he was afraid to order anything from room service because he thought he'd have to pay for it. He didn't have any money. So they realized that he wasn't eating. So they finally came and they told him, "Chris, it's okay. Order whatever you want. It's on us." you
Right,
know?
right.
So he learned about the movie business. Eddie was out there doing reshoots for a movie called Golden Child.
Oh yeah, I remember that
And-
movie.
And Chris had never been on a movie set before.
And that was his first movie.
It was his first time. Well, he didn't get in that movie, but he got him auditions. As a matter of fact, he auditioned for The Tonight Show, and he didn't get it. But Chris said he didn't mind he didn't get it. He goes, it would have been too much if he got it. He was traveling with his idol, Eddie Murphy, and he was so excited just to be there with him. But that's when Eddie offered him Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Right.
And that's really what launched his career. In 1987, he did Beverly Hills Cop 2. So
Wow.
those are the kind of stories that the book is filled with. Each one of the celebrities that I've interviewed gave me great, very intimate, detailed stories
About that.
about their
This is
history.
gonna be an
and how
awesome film.
It's going to be off the chain.
And it's going to be funny. All
Completely.
these comedians.
Oh, it's going to be nuts.
Well,
Absolutely.
thanks
The
for
stories
coming
are
through for
hysterical.
the U.S.
Well,
Co-Brand
it's my pleasure to
fashion
be
show.
here. My pleasure to be here. Howard Collins invited me. Do you know Howard Collins? From I was writing a roast for Brimstone, the wrestler.
Uh-huh.
It was his birthday roast for charity.
Okay.
And all the reality stars were there, and I met Howard, and he invited me to come down tonight.
Okay, well, you're going to have a great time. Thanks
Absolutely.
for coming.
It was so nice to
You too. You
Thank
too.
you.
Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Little Nat here in Times Square at the U.S. Co-Brand Fashion Show.